Three, two, one, and we're on. We're live. We're recording. This is SHB Unfiltered, the podcast. Episode number what, Chris?
Episode 40 today.
Episode 40. So this is episode 40 of SHB Unfiltered, which means we have been recording, streaming live, taking Q&A, and just chatting rubbish at this time of the day for 40 days in a row. 40 whole days, Chris. Did you think we'd get to this point when we first started? You're on mute as well, Bus.
I'm not on mute.
Oh, you were on mute. Well, I didn't know what you were doing before, but your ventriloquist impression.
No, I'm here. No, yeah. I didn't think we would get to 40 podcast episodes so quick when we had the idea to do the podcast. I knew we were committed to doing this every day, and I had no doubt that we were going to stick to that commitment.
Yeah, that's the magic of consistency. I'm a big kind of implementer of compounding, just making small actions, but every day, like frequently for a long period of time. And you can achieve massive results if you just don't rush yourself and give yourself plenty of time just to accumulate achievements. Ayo, how's it going today, man?
Yeah, today's been a good day. Had to go to London. Had to go to speak to my lawyer. Had to do some Facebook stuff. But yeah, all worked out good. So yeah, I've had a good day. Time for the podcast.
Cool. And Chris, as always, how's your day been? Any more 5K runs? Any dog walking, etc.?
Not today. I've been at the computer all day, doing a few things, trying to do some work for the charity as well. So yeah, today's been a productive day, but not a very active day. What about you, Ruben? How's it been?
Today started off with Ayo actually, but he didn't mention it, seeing as it probably slipped his mind, but we've been running the SHB reading club every morning at 7 a.m. We just read through Redefining Stuttering together by John Harrison, take a few sentences each and use it to start the day with speech practice and also refresh ourselves on a book I haven't picked up now in about a year and a half. And it served me well at some points. I want to revisit. And it is interesting actually looking back at some of the things, and it still is relevant now than it's still relevant now as it was before. Things make a lot more sense. So I'm really excited to actually get through the book and really analyze it from a different lens now, because I think every time you read it, depending on where you are on your speech journey, you can actually keep learning from it because you see it in different ways. It's got so many layers to it. And I'm looking forward to getting into the meat of it now. But today's been busy as always, quite a lot of meetings, quite a lot of calls. VC has been used extensively as always, but that's the magic of tech right now. And this podcast has served me well for improving that side of my communication skills. That's the benefit of doing this every day. That's a massive benefit. Other thing I've been doing was looking at Toastmaster meetings running on the weekends. I want to check out like a few other ones, because while it's all on Zoom, this is your chance really. So I might attend one in Dublin. Well, not in Dublin, but over Zoom in Dublin on Saturday. And I'm looking for one on Sunday as well. In the morning, hopefully, because just to change up. So because while we can do it, these are the options available. And that is it from me. So before we go into the meaty part of today's topic, I wanted to ask you both, what are your goals now for the rest of lockdown? Because there has been inklings in the news that they are looking to lift lockdown as soon as possible. Second week of May. Some businesses have actually already started reopening and doing takeaway only and stuff like that, just taking it upon themselves to actually take action, because if they wait and wait, then they'll go bust. So depending on their situation, they are actually taking action now. What are you guys kind of doing and working on that you can leave lockdown and think, you know what, I've actually achieved something here?
As I mentioned before, I'm doing a few things to add to my skill set, add to my knowledge. But Ruben, you said the businesses are opening. Is that them opening on their own accord, or have they checked to see if they are allowed to open for takeaway only? Or they've just worked out, if we stay shut for another 2 weeks, we won't survive, so I'm opening, I don't care?
I didn't ask them personally.
No, but
however, yeah.
It is, or not?
No, but however, if you are like kind of a place to eat and stuff, then I think you can do the delivery, you got the function, but they're doing like kind of pick up only, takeaway and stuff like that. So the premises is closed for people to actually sit, but as long as they have a system in place to restrict the number of people coming in, and if they can maintain social distancing within the premises, I believe they can function. Because to be honest, when you go to the supermarket, does everyone respect the 2 meter rule? Or is it even possible sometimes if you're walking down the aisle? Because even a few weeks ago, there were some protests from employees of Holland Barrett and stuff, because they were still open. But have you seen how small their shops are? So you're always in close proximity with other people. So yes, they have these rules, but depending on what kind of business you are, you have to apply accordingly. It works better for some, but not for others.
Yeah. Do you think that it's too soon to lift the lockdown in a couple of weeks? Personally, do you think it's too soon?
I think it all depends on what's happening in the hospitals. Because if they have the bed space, they have capacity to take on more people, then it's a better time to do it. But if they're still kind of feeling it up against the wall, then probably too soon, because you just kind of eventually, like, quite a lot of population will get infected, but it's all about managing the flow, isn't it?
Yeah. Well, we were always going to be a couple of weeks behind Italy. That's what the general rule seemed to be throughout this whole pandemic. But if Italy are going to open on the 4th of May, which I believe they are, and then retail spaces are going to open the week after, I think we will probably follow suit. But how would that work out for the schools? How would that work out for parents who've got to look after their kids? It's going to create quite a problem. But
God knows.
For me personally, I'm ready for it. I'm ready to get back to work. I'm ready to get back into the big wide world and get out of this house. So yeah, for me personally, the sooner the better.
You should be working already. Get back to work. What is this?
Well,
did you furlough yourself?
Well, when your business relies on retail spaces being open and they're closed, it's quite difficult to continue to run the business.
Definitely.
Is it summer holidays yet? Or is it still Easter holidays?
I swear Easter was like last week, man. There's still eggs in the shops.
Yeah.
You're right.
There's still holidays though for kids, or not?
Yeah, it's the holiday until September, right? By the looks of it. And no one's going back to school. Come on. Think about it. But anyway. Hey, what about you, man? You've been quiet.
I've been working on my business. That's my digital marketing business. And that's the focus for me, just to make sure I'm prepared to take advantage of the situation, but not in a bad way. My aim is to help people who don't have a presence online, and to help them get a presence online. That's the work I've been doing. for Stop Holding Back, and it's been successful. So I want to do that for other people.
Do you
It's playing out pretty well.
Do you want to tell us a bit more about it and like kind of maybe for people watching on who are in the stuttering community,
Yeah.
what motivated you to go down that route? I guess take a risk for someone who's got a speech impediment, and then how has your stuttering played into it when you go to clients to try to win business, etc.? Tell us a bit about the process.
The process of basically trying to start a business, it's all about your why. Why do you want to start a business, and are you passionate enough to go through the hard times, which will come when you start a business? I don't blame anyone for having a job or staying in a career, because starting a business is very, very difficult. It's the same with a charity. To me, they're both the same. It's extremely difficult, and you really need to have the passion to do it, to be your own boss. I've always had that passion despite having a stutter, but my stutter was always in the way. I've never ever wanted to work for anyone in my life since I was a little boy, but I've conformed. I conformed because of my stutter, and I was miserable in the jobs I was in up until the age of 29 this year. So this year I left my job and I'm pursuing my dreams, actually. And it's tough. I'm struggling right now. I'll be honest, I'm struggling, but I love it because I know where I'm going to. I'm going to end up. So it's all about your why. You can't just start a business for the money. And that's a lesson I learned quickly. And I lost a hell of a lot of money because I was chasing the money. So you should always chase a business that you would like to do, would like to see through. So again, yeah, it starts from your why.
Cool, thank you. And the other thing would be kind of for people watching on is how stuttering has played into it. So has that been an obstacle, or has it helped you in some way?
I'm sure Chris can talk about this a lot as well. Stuttering definitely is an obstacle. It still is in some respects, but you just have to work on your speech and become a better speaker, and that should see you through.
Do you have do you have any particular examples where kind of it's been difficult, just as context, because it's all good kind of like saying the cliche things, but people need to hear stories to actually learn. So have you got examples of where kind of it's been an issue, but then where you've found success?
So for example, I was making a sales call a few weeks ago, and I really had to focus in on my technique, on my breathing, and most importantly, my mentality. I had to make sure I was in the mentality of I am working on my speech, and I was being authentic throughout the conversation. And that allowed me to calm down, prepare my thoughts before I said them. And it allowed me to be honest and come through really authentic when I was trying to sell my services to this person.
What were their responses to your kind of like disfluency or your different way of speaking? Because they may have been expecting someone like really salesy in the traditional sense, and kind of you would have thrown a curveball in the sense. So was their response of surprise, or a bit of understanding, or a bit of distancing? What was the reaction from the other party?
It was cool. Once I disclosed at the beginning of the conversation, it was totally fine, and it allowed me to relax. If I didn't disclose, which I have done so in the past on different sales calls, those calls always play out really bad, because I put pressure on myself to come across fluent because I haven't done the right thing at the start of the conversation, which is, I guess, set my own expectations.
Awesome. And just the last question, that quickly, did you kind of come to this understanding in the moment by yourself, or did you speak to anyone or coach you have to actually get guidance for that situation? Or was this something that you implemented yourself from your knowledge and your experience, both being a coach and kind of learning along the way in your own journey?
A bit of both, but mainly from experience. I've always known since starting this speech journey of working on my speech, you have to disclose and you have to be honest, and you have to always be in that mindset of working on the speech, or you're just going to find it really hard. I found it really hard. If I'm making a sales call, I have to disclose and I have to be myself. My strategy is not to sell, because selling never works. Selling too aggressively never works. They always know you're just trying to sell them a product or service. But if you have a normal conversation with them and ask them about their day, ask them about them and their business, what they've experienced in the past, get some affinity with them, it always plays out well. And if it's exactly, and also if you just be honest and tell them your weaknesses, which is not, well, stuttering is not really a weakness. It depends on how you use your stuttering. So you can use your stuttering as the strength in a sales call if you're strong enough to use it as a strength. So that's my experience.
Yeah, that's really good. So the last question was kind of something I thought would be a good way to segue into today's topic of the podcast. And I say topic, but we don't have to stick to it. You can speak about everything around it, personal experiences, things we've kind of seen from other people, and combine into something that we can give to whoever's watching. I actually got this topic, this idea was from Leo, but hope the conversation is kind of something that he could see as useful, because I think that quite a few people in his position would benefit from this type of guidance on today's topic, which is how to self-coach. Now, what I'm going to do is just quickly give my understanding of that term of self-coach. So a person who's self-coaching has the ability to, I guess, analyze and be objective about themselves, where their kind of progress is, how they're doing, and then they have the ability to actually identify areas of development. If things aren't going well, they can actually be honest with themselves and take action. And the other thing would be kind of in those moments where you need help or guidance, you kind of have that experience already of navigating through that situation. And the final thing, which I think is the most important thing that I've seen in kind of coaches in the past or teachers, is understand when you don't have the answers and seek it out from someone else and be honest about that, because the worst thing you can have is complex where you think you know everything, when that's impossible. So you can find someone who has the answers for that particular problem if you don't have them yourself. And with that, I'm gonna hand over to Chris. See, I think we've mentioned this before at some point in the podcast, but that was more on like when to actually kind of start operating independently, and I guess interacting with your coach less and less than you were at the beginning. But try to maybe speak about this from practical examples and situations where you've had to self-coach yourself in the moment or in the situation.
Yeah, I think we've talked about this previously, and I remember talking about it with you when we had a question, or when is it okay to let go a little bit, and we came up with the decision that it's okay to let go when you can be self-conscious and self-aware of how to recover if you hit blocks and stuff like that. But for me, the importance of self-coaching, for me personally, what I found is the most important aspect of it is to be able to self-analyze. People can get caught up in chronic denial about where they are with their speech and what is going on with them and their speech. People, I know I was struggling to accept at a time that my speech had dipped off as much as it had. I was struggling to get almost every other word out at one point after having a really good speech. And at the beginning, the first time this happened to me, I was allowing it to go on. And I was thinking, well, it's not that bad. It's not that bad. It's fine. It's fine. And then before you know it, you're really struggling and you're not implementing anything. You literally have almost completely stopped working on your speech. So for me, it was very important to be able to take a step back and think, okay, what am I doing now that is completely different to what I was doing when I first started working on my speech? And my list was so long. I wasn't doing my warm-up. I wasn't advertising. I wasn't disclosing at all. I wasn't cancelling at all. I was allowing myself to push through blocks and just continue the conversation. But that conversation didn't last very long because you start to get back into that mindset of let's get through the conversation as quick as we can. And that is not working on your speech. And it took for me to realize that, to know, right, you need to do something again about this. But also it took for me to realize maybe this time around again, I'm not going to be able to do it completely alone. So that's when I reached out. That's when I did ask for help. That's when I did have to swallow my pride and realize, okay, I just need that little push to get back on track. And that's where you guys came in. And that's when, that's what your support network is for. Support network is for the bad times and the good times. So for me, self-coaching is you really have to be aware of yourself. You can't be in denial at all. You know how you felt when you felt like you've just got control of your speech, and you know how you feel when you're not in a good position with your speech. So you have to just accept, I'm not in a good position. I need to start doing something.
Do you think, Chris, that self-coaching suits certain personality types more than others? Or kind of will it just take some people a lot longer to be that objective? And do you think for some it's almost impossible?
No, I don't think that. I think self-coaching depends on how you've been coached. For me, I think you learn the art of self-coaching as you're being coached for the first time. I think the aim of a speech coach should be to put that person in a position where they can self-coach. And I think if you get someone asking you the same questions over and over, then you have failed them as a coach. They need to be able to answer those questions for themselves. Loads of times I get questions and I'm like, okay, I'm not going to answer that for you. I'm going to ask you to answer it for you. And they're always right, but they just want that helping hand at the beginning. It's about getting them over that. It's about getting them to realize you need to take responsibility. And I think the more people don't put pressure on people they coach to take responsibility, the more they can have that, the more they can be that person that might not be able to self-coach. But I'm pretty confident that everyone that I coach is capable of being able to self-coach.
Arthur Young has just contributed and said, Ruben, self-coaching is something I think I do without realizing it. Self-love is my way forward. I didn't love my stammering personality back then, when in fact it was nothing I could have helped living with a stammer. I was way too hard on myself. And I saw that comment, and I think it's easy for us to be our own worst critic at times. And maybe sometimes some people, they could go the other way and they could overcoach themselves and just get really, really, really into it and be really hard on themselves, and kind of take it the other extreme where they're trying to do everything and everything at the same time because they want to kind of like grab onto something or keep something that they have, or achieve something. However, going back to one of my earlier points at the start, the time, because people don't give themselves time to do things. They set these unrealistic, kind of like vague deadlines or whatever on certain things, 3 months, 6 months. But is there any harm in saying I want to be at this level in 3 years' time? I think that's fine. So yeah, like in that kind of comment, if you're hard on yourself, then you will actually be restricting the amount of progress you can make, because it will restrict your ability to actually take risks, take risks, and actually step out of your comfort zone. And then when you're in your comfort zone, so when you're stepping out of it, you have to fully experience what's happening. You can't dip your toe in and then beat yourself up about what happened. You just got to keep throwing yourself in situations after you reached a healthy point where you've reached a good level, and then you can push on by actually taking on these experiences. Because in the end, a coach can only take you a certain way, but they will not be kind of controlling every area of your life. At some point, it turns into kind of a personality thing. It's up to you to develop certain habits to actually maintain any speech success.
I think that's the hardest part about coaching, Ruben, if I'm honest, is to instill that in the person you're coaching. Instill that if you're struggling, you have to go and take action. You have to push yourself on your own. That for me is probably the difficult thing to instill. I think everyone's capable of it, but like you said before, some people have it sooner than others. Some people are more motivated than others. Some people enjoy the process more than others. And when you enjoy the process more, you want to push yourself more. So I think that's the most difficult part of it. I know that AO instilled that in me when he was coaching me 2 years ago. So maybe AO wants to elaborate on what he thinks the best way is to instill that in someone.
Just a quick one though, like, do you actually think that it can be instilled, or does someone have to realize it themselves? Because I kind of see it like when you ride a bicycle, you can't just kind of instill balance into that person. They kind of have to work out themselves.
Yeah, but as a coach, you have to let them know that it's okay to do it. It's okay to not get it perfect, but you have to keep doing it. It's up to you to tell them the reasons why. It's up to you to motivate them as well, because they have to be motivated, but you as a coach have to be able to motivate them.
Got it. Yeah. All right. Go on.
More than motivating, a coach has got to be inspiring. They have to be able to inspire the person they're coaching. So they have to be the example. That's just the fact of it. People need to be inspired. But in terms of self-coaching, for me, the key thing is, if you want to be successful at coaching yourself, is being totally true to what is going on at the present time with your speech. You need to be honest with yourself, extremely honest with yourself. And a lot of people are not honest. They would rather think too much about what's going on, think about all the different theories and what could be going on, instead of just asking themselves simple questions about their speech and comparing it to when they had good speech, and just seeing what the variables have changed. It's that simple. But it's being honest is the number one issue in self-coaching. You have to be honest with where you're at. When my speech is bad, I'm honest. I am very honest, and I tell myself, wow, your speech is bad, bro. What are you going to do about it? Do you need help? Should you be reading more aloud? Because I'm not the best at reading out aloud, even now. So that is something I am working on. And it's part of the reason why I am doing the reading club, so I can practice reading out aloud. You have to let go of the ego, let go of pride. I have to let go of my ego and my pride. So that's when you know you're a good coach, is when you can honestly tell yourself the truth at all times.
I'm just gonna take attention back to Facebook comments. So we've got kind of a question from Arthur that asks, do you think our stammer is much higher percentage of who we are, when in fact it's a small part of who we are? I think it's for some people it is a big part of them, but for some people it's a small part. But it depends on how much focus you place in it. I'll pass the question over to you two in a second after I get to this next comment, which is, it's quite a nice one. He said something about you all is way different from other groups. It's more user friendly. What our stammers need, a more sympathetic approach. Well done, guys, for your awareness in what our community needs, and thank you very much, Arthur. And I think that's a promising sign that people actually understand what we are all about and what we're trying to do within the stuttering community, as there are plenty of groups out there. So I guess for some people, seeing a new group may confuse them, because they'll be wondering, why is there yet another community or another group? But it's good that we can differentiate ourselves in that sense and appeal to people. So Arthur, thank you very much. I'm gonna kind of go through a point quickly and then hand it back over to you two. First of all, I will start with something that we just talked about on self-coaching. So this is more on you kind of explain the characteristics that you need, so that honesty, objectivity, and the ability to actually take action when things aren't going the way you intend to. When do you think someone should start to self-coach? Because I'm sure you have seen examples of people who try to go too early, or some people who just don't want to let go yet of the coaching support, the frequent coaching support. When do you think is like a good indicator in terms of maybe how that person is or what they're showing? When is a good indicator for a coach to start stepping away? And you can also touch upon Arthur's question about kind of if stuttering is a big part of us or a small part of us. My personal opinion on that is depends simply on how much focus you put on it and how many other things you have going on in your life. But yeah, I'll hand those two over to you guys to kick it off.
All right, so the best indicator for me to know when someone can self-coach is really easy. It's when they start to self-cancel. When they can cancel, it's so easy. When they can cancel, and I don't have to tell these guys to cancel, they're ready. When they cancel on every little stutter they have, because that is what I did. That's how I was coached. Self-cancellation. It's very difficult to self-cancel in a lot of situations, especially if you're in a large group and you're having a block. And if you have the courage, you have the courage to cancel yourself as many times as necessary. In the large group, you're a coach, in my opinion. You are a coach. Because that is one of the hardest things in the world to do, cancellation.
You took my point there, to be honest. I was going to say exactly the same thing. Cancellation is a key indicator. It's also a key indicator when people are ready to be really pushed as well. I also think that when you can see that someone's fully aware, they know that the word didn't come out the way they wanted it to, and they're not trying to fool themselves, they're not trying to kid themselves. And I think also when you see someone cancel a word 2, 3, sometimes 4 times in public, I think that just shows strength in how much they've learned. That shows that they're ready to take things on their own.
But at the same time, I'm not saying you have to. I'm not saying people who stutter or people who work on their speech have to cancel every single word.
No, we're talking about at the beginning of their journey. At what point?
Exactly.
When they start from scratch. When
Exactly.
they've got the hang of the art of cancellation and when to use it and how to use it properly, that's when you know that these understand what they've been taught.
My question to that would be, to say hypothetically someone had to do that. So they had to cancel 3, 4, 5 times maybe, say 4 or 5. And you guys are saying, yeah, that's brilliant. But what if for them personally, emotionally, that was registered as a negative experience?
Then we haven't managed their expectations. That is a simple answer to that. What we all have to realize is we're working on our speech, but we still stutter. You can't get a feared word or a feared sound out of your head after 2 weeks. I don't care what program you're on. I don't care how many contacts you've made. That is not permanently removed from your subconscious mind after 2 weeks. I'm really sorry to say it as harshly as that, but it's not. So just because you're blocking doesn't mean that cancellation hasn't been used effectively. And it's up to us as coaches to explain that.
And it's the same for me.
I was going to say, sorry. So the reason why I brought that point up is would you also kind of look at the emotional component in that as well? Because if there is a high kind of emotional attachment to getting cancellation done or kind of succeeding in that situation, and if it's always like really high, full throttle, then do you think that could also be like maybe a bad indicator in that sense, that they still need that kind of support around them? Because that they could say 2 different scenarios. They could be cancelling 3, 4 times in a situation and just feel a bit down about it because it didn't go the way they thought it would be, because it went on for 3, 4 times. Then in a different situation, exact same thing happened, cancelled 3, 4 times, but they left it thinking, man, like that was a really good situation. I feel a lot calmer now because I cancelled 3, 4 times. Now, in terms of cancellation, they've done the exact same thing. But would you think there's a difference there in their attitude towards it?
Yeah, of course. Because cancellation also proves that you're in control of yourself in that conversation. So whereas the focus in the first time was on how well can I get this word out, as you progress, it's how well am I conducting myself in this conversation? So once you shift, and we've spoken about communication skills being more than your level of fluency. And we've spoken about us desensitizing ourselves from other people's reactions or opinions, and doing what we need to do to make progress with our speech. And that is one of the things that we need to be doing to make progress with our speech. So that's why the latter example would be a positive example.
Yeah. And just to add, we're talking about people at the beginning of their journey. It's very important to cancel, because we want to install that habit and the awareness of themselves when they're speaking. But as people go through this working on their speech journey, there's a balance to be had. As I've seen the video of someone who's been working on their speech for a number of years, and they were given a public speech, and they were cancelling over a minute, like saying the same word for about a minute, non-stop, repeating it, breathing, saying the word, stuttering. They weren't saying the word, they were stuttering, but they kept repeating it. And that person's been working on their speech for a long time. So then in that situation, the issue is not about cancellation. It's a few steps before that. What are you doing with the breathing? Why are you repeating the same technique? You should use another technique, or you should just slow down and stop what you're doing and rethink. So cancellation is not like the be all, right? So once you've reached a certain stage, you need to think more holistically. Right now, I'm taking myself back to the cancellation stage, because I know myself and I'm being honest with myself. Again, it's all about honesty. So I'm trying to cancel out as much as possible, even though I know there's more to communication. But right now, I'm cancelling, I'm not always doing it, but I'm working towards it. So again, it comes down to honesty, and making sure you know where you're at on your speech journey.
Cool. Just touching back on that previous point you made. I've kind of encountered this particular example or situation a couple of times, but how would you coach someone who's been working the speech for a number of years and they still kind of reach out for help, but they aren't really implementing things that they should have done a while back, or things you've said before, and if kind of you feel like you are literally like a broken radio repeating things where maybe they could be asking you, but when they want to hear something different, how do you deal with that type of scenario?
1 second. The thing is, in those situations, those people are in that situation or have that mindset because of their previous coaches. That would not happen with us. We know better than that. They've been coached in a totally wrong way to focus on the wrong things, the physical technique a bit too much, and that's all they think they have. And
Yeah,
that's the problem.
Yeah, but that's fine. But I'm just asking, just for this situation, I didn't provide any other context or anything else. But for this situation, in terms of the question I asked, how would you approach that?
Take them back to the mindset. Take them through certain concepts of why they're working on the speech in the first place and what they're looking to achieve. Take the focus away from trying to speak perfectly and actually shift the focus onto why are you even working on your speech? What do you want to achieve? Is perfect speech really that important to get to where you want to get? Can we find a balance here? and try to work out a strategy.
CJ, do you have anything to add on that, or not in that scenario?
I think as your journey progresses, I think that cancellation is important when you've blocked on a word and you know that block is going to affect your mindset the next time you go to say that word. I think if it hasn't, then cancellation isn't as important as we make out in that specific scenario.
I was actually asking about the person who's kind of seeking help, even though they've been working on their speech for years and years and years, but you've already explained to them kind of different things in the past, but they keep asking the same question again. At what point do you tell them, kind of, look, this is the approach, or if they've already exhausted all different routes, then what's the best way to approach that situation with a person maybe stuck in a cycle of kind of trying something for a small bit of time and then giving up?
You have to work out what their long-term motivation is, or even if there is any motivation at all. Because sometimes people are in a situation where they're not ready to be helped right now.
Yeah, I completely agree with that, actually. Completely agree with that, because like we've actually mentioned this before a couple of times, but I think episode 7 maybe with Simon, where we talked about working on your speeches, actually. It's something that you have to really commit all of your resources to. And you can't just like think of speech as one kind of isolated thing that you work on. You actually have to develop other positive habits and grow in other areas of your life to actually take your speech forward as well. And you see a trend with some of these people in terms of like discipline with certain things. They aren't very structured. They aren't kind of committed to things. And if you don't have that commitment in other areas of your life, then it's gonna kind of reflect the same when you're trying to work on your speech as well. And it isn't something you can do half-heartedly, or you aren't going to get results quickly. This is a long-term approach, and you have to be consistent with it. And consistency is something that people lack. People try things like really temporarily, and we mentioned it before, where you were approached by someone to help you with the job interview because they were struggling with their speech, but they came to you 2 days before?
Yeah, 2 days before.
That's probably a prime example of lack of kind of discipline, consistency, bigger picture, and all these types of things. Because if they were actually serious about doing it properly and setting themselves up, then they would have actually approached you a lot earlier. Because getting the job is one thing, but what happens afterwards when you get there? I'm going to see what the Facebook comments are saying, and got another one from Arthur. He says, you all will benefit from the outlook in years to come. It took me way too long to find out what was important to me. And I was chatting to Callum, Scope for today, and saying how we need others like yourselves to think outside the box and not just focus on what other programs do. Great watching you all tonight. Cheers, Ruben, CJ, and Ayo. Thank you very much, Arthur. Great for having you on. As always, we appreciate you just as you appreciate us. And I genuinely hope that this kind of episode actually reaches certain people, because it will make hopefully make them realize, well, kind of, this is what I've been doing, this is what I should be doing or could be doing. Because I don't particularly think it's a technically hard thing to do. It isn't hard to apply technically. The hardest part is actually kind of the emotional impact on certain things like disclosures or maybe using technique in front of certain people, then the commitment to it, doing it every day throughout your day. And these aren't things you can actually teach people. These aren't things you can teach people. And those aspects need to kind of, that's the responsibility of the person to be committed. Chris, does anyone tell you to wake up in the morning and brush your teeth?
No.
Exactly. So, like some of the principles of like working on your speech should be almost like that. You do it out of your own accord. It's literally built into your system.
You did get told, though.
Go on.
You did get told by your parents at one point to wake up in the morning and brush your teeth, though, and then it became a habit, and then it became a part of you. I think it's the same. You just have to tell them a couple of times and do it with them for a while, and hopefully they can pick it up. But like you said, some just won't, because at that time we're not ready. It's just a fact of life sometimes.
Yeah, also, I think that people do not realize how much you have to embed this into your life. Working on your speech is not a sports club that you go to once a week. It's not a football team that you play for every Sunday. You have to speak every day. You have to communicate every day. So it has to be part of your life every single day. Just as important as it is to wake up in the morning and brush your teeth and have a shower, it's just as important to work on your speech. And that's what people have to realize. That's what people have to take on board, and that's what they have to accept when they go on the working on my speech route.
Yeah. Another thing people have to take into consideration is the emotional part of working on your speech. Working on your speech is very, very emotional. Very emotional. And if you cannot control your emotions, you're going to find it very difficult to advertise, which is a staple thing we do to gain control of our speech over time. Advertising. And that can be so difficult for people because of the emotional impact on their personality and how people perceive them. So we really need to manage expectations in that way as well, to make sure people understand what they know, what they need to know, and how much it's going to take from them if they want to have any sort of success with working on their speech.
Cool. Hey, that's really, really useful. And like I said, that should literally be boxed up and posted to a few people I know. But we'll get on that maybe some point in the future. Guys, any final words before we close out episode 40 on this very, very useful topic, I think. Very useful topic.
I feel like we are giving so much value to people. And it shows just how much we care, because we do care. And we all have stutters, and we all know how difficult it is to have a stutter in 2020. It's still the same like it was 20 years ago. Not a lot has changed. A lot of people who stutter in this country, around the world, have it hard. And I'm just really thankful there are people like us in the world to share some of our light to help people in need.
Cool, thank you. And Chris?
Yeah, another great topic. This is SHB Unfiltered. This is what we do. We think outside the box when it comes to which topics to discuss. Just like Arthur Young said in the comments, appreciate the comments, appreciate everyone that tuned in. Thank you very much for another episode.
Cool. Cheers, guys, as always. Thank you for joining me on this wonderful journey as we take this podcast to various places and topics. I hope you are enjoying it, Ayo, because me and Chris are loving it at the moment. So much so that he's just working on his second podcast with a family member. So he's proper loving it, I think, Chris. I'm very, very proud of Chris, actually.
I'm actually working on 3, you know. I'm actually working on 3, but...
He's become that guy now, isn't it? He's become the guy to call. So like, everyone's got a mate for like certain things like Van or Skip or something. Chris is just that podcast guy now. Give me a podcast, Chris will make you a banner and set you up on Podbean.
Yep, I will. I will do my best. But I'm learning every day. There's still so much to learn.
Oh, definitely. I'm still trying to work out how to get the right order on iTunes, because if you look up the podcast on there now, it's just it's like a jumble sale.
Yeah, but, and I'm still trying to work out how to change a podcast from American football to British soccer on Spotify. So yeah,
maybe look for soccer in Podbean.
No, I've changed it. I've actually changed it, but it's not changing on Spotify, and I've tried to do the RSS feed and everything. It's still not changing, but I like the YouTube tutorial or something.
No worries. All right, lads, I'm gonna call it. Thank you very, very much. It's been a pleasure as always. And for anyone out there who is struggling with their speech, look, just be honest, transparent, seek a coach, reassess yourselves, be objective, and always remember, stop holding back.